Everyone, thank you for joining us today. We have a full agenda, I'm pretty certain. Before I call the meeting to order, I'll note for the record I'll serve as acting chair for today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as Empire State for Monday, April 17th, 2017. As noted on the agenda posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda, and I believe we have some public comment today on at least two different items. Speakers representing themselves may speak for up to 2 minutes, and those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes. One speaker per group, and comments may only address items considered at the meeting. At this time, I'll ask directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record now, and then remind you to recuse yourself from any discussion with respect to those items. Anyone? I am recusing myself from two Western New York items. One is Sodexo, and one is Innovate New York. Sodexo is a lunchtime supplier to Larkin Development, and Innovate New York has as one of its funds Seed Capital Partners, where I've had a long-standing relationship predating ESD by quite some time. As always, directors have received the written materials in advance of today's meeting, and they are free to ask questions at any time during the presentation. The first item is the approval of the minutes of March 23rd. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? So moved. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. I'll do a brief president's report. Let's see. Governor, since our last meeting on March 30th, Governor Cuomo launched the third and what we believe will be the final round of the new New York broadband program. So this third round should address all the unserved markets remaining in New York. And as you all know, this is the most ambitious broadband program in the country. And we use what we call a reverse auction process, where we get as many people served for as few public dollars as possible through this reverse auction. So we're excited about the way that has been working. And so the third and final round is underway. We also announced, the governor did on March 24th, the very exciting development of Danfoss, which is one of the world's premier power module manufacturers. They are occupying Quad C in Utica, which has been a long vacant building. They are partners with GE and the power electronics use of silicon carbide. The power modules that will be made in Utica will power everything from data centers to helping windmills convert into electricity, to healthcare imaging systems, and many other things. So it's kind of the leading edge technology in power electronics. It's a huge market. They'll have over 300 direct employees. And I want to recognize in our business development group and legal who worked on this quite extensively and very effectively. So we're excited. I know the people of Utica are excited to have this building on track for a really exciting future. We started construction, or Holy Childhood's new Special Touch Bakery started construction on April 12th. There was an announcement. This is a 20,000 square foot bakery which will create 40 new jobs for people living with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the Finger Lakes region, and they were provided with a $480,000 grant. So this is a very positive development in the Finger Lakes. And you may have seen this here in New York. On April 13th, Glossier announced they were relocating their headquarters to a 26,000 square foot space in 1 Soho Square from 123 Lafayette to create 282 new jobs in technology, finance, marketing, operations. They are a digital beauty brand, for those of you who use digital beauty products.
Digital beauty.
Hopefully,
Digital beauty product.
hopefully,
What happens if you walk away from your computer? Does your face change?
hopefully you've all noticed the glow that I have.
I'm wondering about that, Howard.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm going to be their spokesperson. I want to introduce our EVP, Public Policy and Intergov, Mike LaFave. Mike is at the end of the table, and he will, because since our last meeting we have a new state budget, Mike and his team and many others at ESD worked hard on advocating for economic development, inclusion in the budget, which obviously it was. It's always been a high priority for the governor, and this year I think we ended up with a great budget, Mike, thanks to your help and many others. So maybe you could give the directors a kind of update on where the budget, some of the highlights from the budget, and then if they have any questions.
Do you want me to use the mic?
Yeah,
Or?
get
Yeah,
the microphone
yes,
down there.
definitely.
We don't want this to be a hog calling contest. Speak right into the microphone, young man.
All right. So,
A little closer, Mike.
we good?
Yeah.
All right. So, by way of just going through basically two major aspects of the budget, one is the capital appropriations that came in during this within the ESDC's capital budget. There's a number of new projects and continuing projects. I'll just go over some of those, and then I'll go over some of the new legislation and programs that that came in through in the budget. So for capital appropriations, we have $700 million for Empire Station, $400 million for the Buffalo Billion Phase 2. Now, the advertised amount for that is $500 million. So you'll see that in all the press releases and everything, but the other $100 million is going to be absorbed in other budgets outside of ESDC. $320 million for a new life sciences initiative. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. $150 million for a public health life sciences lab in the capital region. We'll also talk about that in a second. $207.5 million for what they're calling strategic projects programs. It's essentially the SUNY Poly projects that we had taken on last year. This is the amount that we needed to satisfy our commitments for those projects. $108 million for the Kingsbridge Ice Center, and another round of Restore New York in this budget for $70 million. On the programmatic side, life sciences was one big item that touched economic development this year. It's essentially three different components for life sciences. One is a new tax credit. It's a very attractive and generous tax credit of 15 to 20% for life sciences companies, new formative stage life sciences companies. We'll be able to capitalize on that over the next 3 years. Or it's a 10-year program, but they can actually receive resources over a 3-year period of time, up to $500,000 a year. There is a $150 million, which is essentially a down payment on a much larger amount that will be potentially coming into next year's budget. It's for a public health lab in the capital region. It's the Wadsworth Laboratory, but where it connects with Empire State Development is that we're going to be doing a P3 economic development space will be attached to this project. Right now, we are working with the Dormitory Authority to do a market study. That'll probably take the next 2 or 3 months, and then from that, we'll be able to make a decision about where it'll be located and sort of what the economic development space would be best in the capital region. And the big money on the Life Sciences Initiative is a $320 million appropriation for capital, working capital, and investment capital. It's fairly broadly defined. We actually have a new, as of, I think this is her second week, we have a new Senior Vice President for Life Sciences, Maria Mitchell, who will be working with me to sort of bring in, hopefully over the next 3 to 6 months, some guidelines and some programmatic language around these. It's not going to be $320 million for any one thing. It's going to be for a number of different things. The Excelsior program got a reboot this year to make it more accessible. We lowered the job thresholds to make it easier for companies to meet the criteria and enter into the program. We also doubled the research and development tax credit associated with Excelsior. And
This is the start. It's not called Excelsior.
No, it hasn't changed, actually.
yeah, startup did not change at all. We had some changes in the budget, but they were all rejected. So the program is essentially back to where it was before.
It's Excelsior, Excelsior tax credits, I think.
Tax credits. There is a new comprehensive reporting requirement because no good budget would be without new reporting. This one, though, I think is there's a silver lining to this. It's going to essentially be a sort of like an annual report for all ESD, meaning the department and the corporation, any programs, financial information, job metrics, and it'll be in a sort of a consolidated report that'll be presented at the end of the calendar year every year from this point on.
To the
So,
legislature?
pardon me?
Presented to the legislature?
To the legislature and to the governor, yep. Just like all of our other programs, our other reports. So that, we're in the process of working on that right now. We're going to put a lot of thought into this. We're going to make sure that this is done right, and that we are satisfying, hopefully, requirements from a lot of our other extraneous reports, and we can maybe consolidate this down a little bit.
You know, I think that's very important. We've got to lower the decibel level about these jobs programs and all of these development that we do. And I think that report has to be presented, and it has to be presented in layman's terms and as well as in depth. I think that's absolutely important, because I don't want, you know, the distortions, mostly born out of ignorance, get fired up, and people start getting the wrong impression of not only what we do, but what it's doing.
Right.
And so I think that of all what you've been talking about, that's singularly one of the most important aspects of what you're gonna be doing, and the staff here.
Yep,
Is making sure that we get and it's not spin as much as it's facts. And, in fact, it's not spin, but I think that it's important for us to make sure that gets, not only is it widely disseminated, but also it's eminently readable.
I agree.
Yep, Joyce.
In line with what Rob is saying, will that or could that come to the governance committee before it's finalized?
I'm not sure. I mean, can you say it differently?
Well, to utilize the expertise of the people on the governance committee in putting together reports.
Oh,
And Rob clearly has ideas about how
Right.
it should look.
Well, I
I
mean,
have ideas about how that kind of thing works.
sure. Oh, you mean staff just generally and?
And let us take a look at it before it goes out.
Oh, okay.
I think that would be, were you planning on doing?
Oh, yeah, our plan was to have this, our plan was to have the
Thanks.
report
I didn't know
done
what a
well in
governance
advance
committee is.
of the
Oh,
December
governance.
31st deadline.
Oh, sorry, I
deadline.
thought you said governors committee. Got it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, our plan is to have this report finalized and ready for any review by the end of by the time we get through the fall. So September, October, we hope to have this report done. We'll give us months to review it and make sure that it's correct.
When is the delivery date
The-
for the legislature?
The end of the calendar year, so
End of the
December
calendar.
31st. And then every year thereafter. So
And it's supposed to cover a calendar year as well?
it's going
That's
to
kind of
cut.
odd to have the delivery date the same, covering the same period that the.
We didn't pick the date,
report's
unfortunately.
That's the only odd thing that's ever happened in state government. All right. Any other questions or comments?
How the reporting years align, because some programs have reporting years that end in November, some in
Right.
June. You know,
Right.
there's just, we'll work it out, but we'll know what time period for each.
Yeah, that's going to be our challenge, because like Kevin said, everything starts and ends at different times. We're going to have to figure out a way to uniformly report that into one program, so that's probably going to be our biggest challenge, but we'll be fine.
Next year's legislative program, maybe you could get them in sync.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I
In a
mean,
perfect
I
world.
wouldn't, I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't imagine, we can have the most amazing report the world has ever read, and believe me, there will be contention over any number of things, because this is I know this is shocking, but there are some political aspects to the whole review of economic development. And, I know you feel like we'll get, I can't wait for that budget hearing where I show up and everyone is just, patting us on the back, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. Anyway, Mike, we take more questions, or are you not gone through?
I was just going to go through just a couple things that were outside of ESD, but actually were fairly big initiatives that could potentially impact us. Ride sharing obviously has made it into the budget.
Way to go.
There was a big middle-class tax package that was built into this budget, has a few different moving parts, lowers the personal income tax rate for middle-class taxpayers. It doubles the child tax credit for middle-class taxpayers, and the flagship aspect of it is obviously the thing we've heard a lot about, which is the free college tuition for middle-class taxpayers who make over or under $125,000 a year, which they are calling the Excelsior Scholarship Program. Big work comp reform packages this year. I'm not going to get into all the moving parts, mainly because I don't understand them all, but there's about a dozen different pieces to this. It's tries to strike a balance. On the business side, it is actually some of the reforms do move the process along and are intended to save money for businesses. And then the one unique aspect is that there's new language built into this budget. Obviously, there's uncertainty on the federal side. Special executive budget authority will allow the budget director, if there is a federal cut greater than $850 million, the budget director is authorized in advance to make changes to the budget accordingly. And then the legislature has 90 days to either, if they do nothing, then that will take effect. And if they choose to, they can put something up within the 90 days to replace it.
So, look, from our standpoint, I think it was a really strong budget.
I agree.
We know the programs that we feel have worked, we, continue to have access to. So whether it's REDC funding, Excelsior tax credits, Startup New York, where we issued a report recently, where we're up to now over 1,100 jobs in the program, and it's getting particular traction. Of course, parts of upstate that have been startup deserts, frankly, that are now showing true signs of life. The additional incentive around life sciences, where we know we have a good opportunity. We have a budget that, again, shows fiscal restraint and competitiveness for New York State, which is something we haven't always had. We've got, the first state in the country to offer free college tuition to public schools, which, as the governor says, in the 21st century, the knowledge economy depends on knowledge workers. And, a high school diploma, of 20 years ago is the college diploma of today. So, that plays to New York's strength. The knowledge economy plays to New York's strengths. I think the investments in infrastructure are significant again this year. So we've got all the programs that have been successful, I think, in economic development, plus fiscal restraint, which has been so important, plus infrastructure investment. And so when you think about economic development, I think those six, those elements make for a great environment. And that's, I think, why we've really, in large part, why we've seen the economy chugging along as well as it has for the past many years.
Are we going to have any responsibility for financing the Gateway project?
The transport, no, I don't believe so. Liz, you may know differently.
I'm not aware of any.
But I don't.
Because I
Role that
thought
we-
it had been mentioned at one point, but I could be wrong.
We would definitely be open to conversation about that, but
Well, if there's no federal funding, who knows what'll happen?
Any other questions for Mike
Know anybody that could influence that?
on the budget?
Actually, no. Just the last one.
With that, I'm going to introduce Mike Reese, who's our regional director in the Mohawk Valley, and has done an excellent job, and has been with ESD, Mike, for
About 7 months.
7 months, 1 week and a day. And way to go, we welcome you. Why don't you just take a minute and tell people about your background? Mike has a impressive background in economic development in the region. who is no stranger to, all of our colleagues in economic development in the Mohawk Valley. And then I'll get out of your way and you can do the presentation.
Before I give you my background, I just wanted to mention that at the end of the table, we have some coffee Keurig K-Cups from Utica Coffee, voted one of the coolest coffee shops in all of New York State, in downtown Utica. And out on the table where the coffee is, we brought down some Holland Farms, what we call Half Moons in upstate New York. They are, I guess you refer to them as black and white cookies. At Lindsay's request, we brought those down.
They were left over from somebody's Easter.
No, they're excellent.
They're really good.
All right, got it.
I started my economic development career at SUNY Plattsburgh at their Economic Development and Technical Assistance Center in the summer 1979. I know you're thinking I must have been 10 years old at the time.
Didn't do anything this morning.
We served the 14 northern counties of upstate New York through the 3 EDA-funded economic development districts. In 1983, I moved to the Mohawk Valley to assume the position of the executive director of the Herkimer County Economic Development Corporation, where I stayed for a couple of years. And then literally in 1986, moved across the street to the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District, where I served 22 years as their executive director. Brought over $40 million of EDA grants to the Mohawk Valley to help build close to $100 million worth of infrastructure, including most of the industrial parks that we now have in the 6-county region, water and sewer improvements, and the redevelopment of Griffiths Air Force Base. In 2008, I was hired by the Fulton County Economic Development Corporation, and I worked there until 2014, basically doing their retention and attraction efforts and also managing a $23 million real estate portfolio. As Howard mentioned, I've been with Empire State Development since August 31st, 2016. So for the past 38 years, I've worked in some facet to improve the upstate economy. As Jerry Seinfeld says, the correct way to eat the black and white cookie is to get a little bit of the chocolate and the vanilla in each bite. All right, I think we're ready. The 6 counties that make up the Mohawk Valley include Oneida, Herkimer, Fulton, Montgomery, Otsego, and Schoharie. The total population of our region is approximately 490,000. Our population centers are the cities of Utica, Rome, Oneonta, Gloversville, and Amsterdam. Manufacturing and agriculture have been a major drivers of our regional economy for decades. We've transitioned from textiles, leather, and metals to now cybersecurity, nanotechnology, and yogurt. Our physical location has always been a plus for economic development as we're located within 500 miles of the top 50 U.S. markets as well as Toronto and Montreal. This slide shows some of the major employers in the region, including our Air Force Research Lab, which is located at the Griffiths Business and Technology Park. The lab has a $1 billion annual budget and an economic impact of $312 million in the Mohawk Valley and Central New York. Howard stole some of my thunder and with his announcement of Dan Foss moving into the Quad C building in Marcy. But we're very excited with Dan Foss and their partner, General Electric. General Electric was a big company in Utica for many, many years, have been gone for several years, and we welcome them back. We have 2 major brewers in the region, Saranac in Utica and Omegang in Cooperstown, plus several smaller craft brewers. Faya U.S. Dairy, interesting story with Faya. They arrived to Johnstown in 2005, and one of the reasons we were able to attract them is we had excess sewer capacity available because our leather industries had moved offshore. After they were there for a couple of years, we ended up getting a round 2 CFA for $1 million to help the sewage treatment plant increase their capacity to handle the waste that was coming out of the yogurt facility. And as Faya continued to grow, now we've attracted a company called Johnstown Renewables. They're constructing an acid waste treatment facility right near Faya in the Johnstown Industrial Park with assistance from a Round 5 CFA award. The company will produce 3 million gallons of ethyl alcohol and 2.4 million pounds of dry yeast. We've experienced a resurgence in the regional economy over the past 6 years. Since 2010, our unemployment rate has dropped by 4%. Our exports have increased 8.1% to $1.9 billion in 2014, and our gross domestic product increased by 15.9% to $10.57 billion in 2015. However, 16.5% of the people in the Mohawk Valley are still living below the poverty line, and that's still too high, and therefore we still have much work to do to expand the economic prosperity to everyone. We're very proud of our REDC performance. The Mohawk Valley has experienced great success over the first 5 years of the CFA process. 315 projects received awards totaling $171 million, which has leveraged over $900 million in direct investment and has helped to create over 6,300 new jobs. The picture here shows Lieutenant Governor Hochul and Congressman Tonko cutting the ribbon on the Mohawk Valley Gateway Overlook Bridge in Amsterdam. The Rebuild New York Bond Act provided some of the funding for this bridge, as well as a Department of State $325,000 round for CFA. Not only was the Mohawk Valley a top performer in round 6 of the CFA competition, we also won for most people in an awards photo. I think we brought everyone from the Mohawk Valley to the awards ceremony. Our round 6 projects awarded leveraged over $528 million in total investments and will help to create over 1,200 new jobs. A major effort this year dealt with redevelopment of our downtowns. 40% of our total ESD priority projects and 55% of other agency funding recommendations were directed towards our downtowns. The region has 3 major strategies that we work under. STEM ecosystem, STEM-intensive industries. We have a major ongoing project to complete the infrastructure for the Marcy Nano Center site. Last fall, we experienced a setback when AMS AG decided not to locate their computer chip manufacturing operations at the site. However, working with our partners Mohawk Valley Edge and our strategic business division of ESD, we're confident that we're going to attract a tenant for that site. The state has made a great commitment of funding to this attraction effort. And as mentioned earlier, Dan Foss is locating at the Quad C facility on the SUNY Poly campus in Marcy, investing $100 million in creating 300 new jobs.
Where are they located?
It's on the SUNY Poly campus in Marcy.
No, Dan Foss.
Dan Foss. We call it Quad C. It's just the name of the building that was erected on the campus for this type of a company.
What are they doing there?
They are packaging power. Howard, help me with the power modules.
So they're getting the silicon carbide chips from Albany, and then they're combining them with other electronics and creating power modules for use in imaging equipment, electricity conversion, data centers,
Yeah, great.
other electronic
We
devices.
buy a lot of product, not related to that. Huge company.
Yep, yes.
The Griffiths International Airport is one of 6 national sites to test the commercial use of unmanned aerial systems, an effort led by a 2-state consortium known as the Northeast UAS Airspace Integration Research Alliance, or NUAIR. With more than 40 industry, technology, and academic partners in New York and Massachusetts, NUAIR will lead the formation of a new industry cluster to make upstate economy a pioneer in the development and commercialization of UAS systems that will help make our region a hub for new economic activities. And we continue to grow our cybersecurity cluster centered around the Air Force Research Lab. Today, international firms such as PAR Technology, BAE Systems, and ITT have offices in our region, while homegrown companies such as Black River Systems and Assured Information Security are becoming forces in the industry. Our local Utica College is leading the way and training these people for these jobs. Our next strategy is agribusiness and craft food and beverage. This is an exciting industry cluster that's been in the Mohawk Valley for decades. Hartwick College in Oneonta has developed the Center for Craft Food and Beverage, the first and only resource for testing, business development, education that supports small and mid-sized breweries, malt houses, farms, and other craft food and beverage producers. The center offers laboratory testing services for beer and brewing raw materials such as barley, malt, and hops, Center also provides technical assistance and business planning services as well as professional development opportunities. Yes.
Where's the market for these products?
Uh, These are mostly small producers that are using this resource, so New York State predominantly. But as they grow, they will continue to sell products outside of New York State as well. SUNY Cobleskill has developed a Cobleskill Farm and Food Business Incubator. It was designated an innovation hotspot in 2015. They've engaged over 30 small businesses to date. The college will begin offering a fermentation sciences degree starting this year. The incubator offers on-farm and in-depth workshops in addition to intensive business planning courses. And Tryon Technology Park was developed when the state of New York transferred title to a closed adolescent detention facility to Fulton County with assistance from a $2 million CFA award. Tryon has become an ideal site for cannabis research and production for Vario Health, one of the pioneering licensed manufacturers of medical marijuana. And Brightwater Farms greenhouses, situated on 150 acres of urban farmland in North Utica, is expanding with the help of around 6 CFA, the amount of $300,000. They've provided many job opportunities for veterans, refugees, and hard-to-place workers. They recently attracted Bloomfield Industries, another medical cannabis grower. So the Mohawk Valley is developing a new ag cluster. I'm planning site visits in the near future if anyone is interested in joining me. Our third major strategy is tourism, from the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown to the Turning Stone Casino in Oneida County to the Water Safari in Old Forge. The Mohawk Valley region is a great tourism destination. We've seen visitor spending increase from $1.4 billion in 2010 to $1.75 billion in 2015. Recent projects have included a CFA award to the Baseball Hall of Fame for their digital archive project called Pastime, which allows people around the world to view rare archival collections. Another major tourism event, the picture at the top of the screen, is the annual Utica Boilermaker Road Race, held annually on the second Saturday in July. We have a limit of 14,000 runners that participate in the 15K race and another 5,000 that run in the 5K race, which is the one I run in. But runners literally come from around the world for one of the largest 15K races in the United States. The revival of one of our smaller villages in the downtown Sharon Springs in Schoharie County is just a remarkable story in the Mohawk Valley. This small rural village is home to globally renowned Beekman 1802 lifestyle brand and the future home of Sharon Springs Resort, a revival of our famous Imperial Baths. The scope and scale of foreign direct investment has spurred the proposed restoration of the Columbia Hotel in downtown Sharon Springs. That project received around 6 CFA in the amount of $1 million. Our opportunity agenda is one of our most important drivers for our strategies. We're extremely proud of the work performed by the Mohawk Valley Resource Center for Refugees. Since 1981, the center has resettled more than 15,000 individuals from a variety of countries. Our new residents have brought a fantastic diversity to our region. In Utica now, you can literally eat food from Bosnia, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Lebanon, Dominican Republic, and Burma all in 1 week. The RDC works... And Somalia, yes. The RDC works closely with the Refugee Center, developing and expanding workforce and training opportunities throughout the region. We're also able to help the Central Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. They received a Round 6 CFA award in the amount of $1.7 million to help them with the construction of a new facility, which will allow them to reconfigure some of their existing space to allow the agency to grow new employment opportunities and vision rehabilitation services. Total project cost is $8.5 million and will retain 90 jobs and create 20 new jobs. CADV manufactures and packages products for state and federal contracts. The City of Oneonta was our Downtown Revitalization Initiative 2016 awardee. The Planning Committee has recently submitted their strategy to the Department of State. In it were listed 13 priority projects seeking over $14 million in funding. Scoring of these projects is taking place now, and we hope that project awards will be announced in the near future. More important than the actual dollars sought for these projects is the exciting buzz that has been created by the planning process, getting business, nonprofit, service, and government sectors working together for the revitalization of downtown Oneonta. And even though there was only one winner in the DRI competition, our Regional Economic Development Council made sure all the communities that submitted DRI applications saw projects funded through CFA Round 6 and the Restore New York round that we just announced. City of Rome saw funding for their Smart Walks project and the demolition of a dilapidated building, Rome Turney. Gloversville received funding for their library and a multi-tenant building in the heart of downtown Gloversville. Cooperstown saw funding for their 22 Main Street revitalization, and they're also installing a broadband hotspot in downtown Cooperstown. Amsterdam received funding for their microenterprise loan fund and the Sanford Clock Tower rehabilitation. City of Utica had 5 mixed-use projects that received funding in Round 5. It's going to result in major renovations with an increase in commercial space on the first floor of these buildings and residential spaces on the upper floors. We were happy to be a top performer in Round 6 competition, but we aren't stopping there. On January 25th of 2017, Commissioner Zemski came to Utica to help rally our Upstate Revitalization Initiative Committee and focus our attention on the investment of the $50 million of URI funds committed to the Mohawk Valley. Our URI Review Committee has reviewed over 20 projects that were in the CFA portal and have recommended 7 projects move to final application. Our next REDC meeting is scheduled for May 9th, and we hope to be able to roll out the Round 7 CFA and also Round 2 of the DRI. This is our regional office staff. It's an exciting time to be in the Mohawk Valley. Our regional partners are collaborating better than any time in our history, and we're poised to continue growth in our region. I think 2016 was a great year, but I predict 2017 will be even better. Thank you. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Mike?
Is that all? No, terrific.
Good job, Mike.
Very good, very impressive.
Thank you.
So, yeah, full plate there.
Glendon, before we kick off the regional presentations, do you want to give a quick summary?
Yes, thank you and good morning. The directors will be requested to consider 14 projects totaling $24,691,500 in grants. The projects include 1 Buffalo Billion Award, 13 Regional Council Awards, and 2 discretionary awards. The project will take place in the Western New York, Southern Tier, North Country, Finger Lakes, Long Island, Mohawk Valley, Mid-Hudson, and Capital Regions, leverage over $100 million of additional investment, retain 1,128 jobs, and create 8 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Glendon. Vinny Esposito from Rochester Finger Lakes will kick it off.
Good morning, Howard.
Hey, Vinny.
Director, can you hear me okay?
Let's put the microphone by that if we could.
Terrific.
It's coming, hold
I
on.
have 4 projects for your approval this morning. All of them are Regional Council priority projects. The first one is a $1 million capital grant to Roberts Wesleyan College for the construction and equipping of their Crothers Science and Nursing Center. This is a project you have approved 2 previous grants for, totaling $500,000. Overall, it's a $25 million project to develop a new science, primarily nurse training facility on their campus. And this $1 million grant, which was Regional Council priority in Round 5, is for the final $6.7 million phase, which has been completed and the building is open and operational. The next 2 projects are related. There are, in fact, 2 different grant requests for approval for the same project. The project itself is called the Pinnacle Canandaigua North Shore Redevelopment Project, which is a 17-acre former brownfield in the North Shore of Canandaigua Lake in the Finger Lakes that has been the source of great consternation for the city of Canandaigua to redevelop for several decades. A development group called Morgan LeChase Development has been successfully able to move that project forward. So the first grant you're being asked to approve is a $1.5 million capital grant that went to the city of Canandaigua, primarily for the public infrastructure components of that site to ensure there was adequate road, sewer, and other utility access. It was performed by the developer and turned over to the city. That has been completed. That was a $11.1 million phase of the $117 million overall project. And the next grant you're being asked to approve is a $1 million capital grant to the developer, Morgan LeChase, for the $19.6 million phase of the overall mixed-use redevelopment, which does include housing, retail, community space, as well as office. Both of those phases have been completed, and the project has started to open. There are residents that have moved in, and there are some businesses that are opening. I believe a couple weekends ago, we're doing a groundbreaking later this spring. And the final project is a combination of 3 different regional council grants from rounds 1, 2, and 3 for the Finger Lakes Business Accelerator Project, which is sponsored by High Tech of Rochester. This is one of the premier regional council priority projects since the council was conceived in 2011 to bring a new incubator accelerator facility to downtown Rochester. Previously, the incubators, the primary ones in Rochester, are out in the suburbs near the campuses of U of R and RIT. This project will bring a marquee accelerator to the middle of downtown Rochester, what is ironically called Midtown, in the former Sibley building, one of our large former department stores, 1 million square foot building. This accelerator will purchase and is purchasing and closing on later this month. That's the reason for it coming to the board. The entire 6th floor of that building, which will be turned into a very, very nice sort of adaptive reuse. So it's not only a accelerator and innovation and entrepreneurship project, but a very, very important downtown revitalization project. These grants total $8 million of $10 million awarded to this project. You previously approved $150,000 for a video conferencing component that has been up and running previously. So those are the 4 regional council priority projects from the Finger Lakes for your approval today.
Thanks, Vinny. So we've got 4 projects, different components of those projects, mostly around innovation and revitalization, both downtown and in Canandaigua. Any questions or comments for Vinny on any of these 4 projects? Is there a motion to approve the, thank you,
Are we
Derek.
approving all 4 of them?
All 4 of, so
Good.
4 of them at
Yeah,
once.
second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Vinny. Kara Longworth is up, 2 Long Island projects related to Hofstra. Kara?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, the directors are going to be asked to approve 2 projects for Hofstra University this morning. They're both regional council projects. Hofstra is Long Island's largest private university. They have almost 11,000 students and 1,800 employees. The president of Hofstra, Stuart Rabinowitz, is the co-chair of the Regional Economic Development Council here on Long Island, and he has recused himself from all matters related to these 2 projects. The first project is a $1.5 million regional council grant for Hofstra's STEM Center. This was a regional council priority project from round 4, and the project is complete. Early in the regional council process, the regional council on Long Island recognized the region had a critical need for better trained STEM employees. So to answer that need, Hofstra developed this project. They created a new learning lab that enables multiple STEM curriculums to be taught together in an innovative, collaborative method that allows for the interdisciplinary training of the students and new research opportunities for the professors and graduate students. In this lab, the students are able to learn practical skills across the scientific spectrum and be better prepared for employment in this field. As I mentioned, this lab has been fully renovated and equipped and is currently operating. It was the total project cost was $4,345,000. The second project, the directors are being asked to approve an $800,000 regional council grant for Hofstra's Community Education Workforce Leadership Training Center. This was a regional council priority project from round 5, and it is complete. The total project cost was $5 million. With this project, Hofstra purchased a surplus Army Reserve Center that had been vacant for many years. The building, it was an eyesore to the distressed community of Hempstead. They purchased the building, they renovated it, and equipped it with high-tech classrooms and computer labs. The building now houses 9 classrooms, 3 studios, 3 conference rooms, and 5 computer labs. It is used for Hofstra's continuing education programs, workforce training programs, and an expansion of the small business assistance program. The building is complete and is fully occupied. Those are the 2 projects, so happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Kara on these 2 workforce-related, STEM-related projects? Is there a motion to approve both projects? Derek, second. Thank you, Joyce. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
Right, Mike Ball, you've got 3 items, and I will recuse myself from any discussion related to at least the Sodexo item and the Innovate New York item.
Good morning, Chair. Oop.
Sorry, go on, Mike.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and Directors. I have 3 projects to present for your approval today. The first one is the approval of a $750,000 grant from the Empire State Economic Development Fund to Sodexo Incorporated. They're a publicly traded food services and facilities management company that serves many sectors, including private corporations, government agencies, and schools, military bases, and hospitals. Sodexo serves 75 million customers each day through its unique combination of on-site services, benefits, and reward services, and personal and home services. So this $3.8 million project to be completed this month involves the consolidation of Sodexo's Western New York back office operations into a new location, which will include the required build-out of the space and the purchase of new furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Sodexo's objective was to justify a long-term commitment to Buffalo and Western New York by consolidating existing operations into one location. If they did not receive the sufficient funding to consolidate the operations, they may have relocated to their corporate headquarters, which are located in the state of Maryland. Sodexo, through its strategic real estate partner, More Partners, identified a new location at 400 Airborne Parkway in Cheektowaga, which they will lease from Uniland, and will retain 511 jobs in the Buffalo area. The second project, the directors are requested to approve a $750,000 grant from the Regional Council Capital Fund for the New York Business Development Corporation doing business as the Excelsior Growth Fund to establish the creation of the Western New York Small Business Fund program. The $1.5 million Western New York Small Business Fund will provide loans under $100,000 to small businesses that cannot access capital through traditional funding. The Excelsior Growth Fund provides fair and affordable products and business advisory services to small businesses that can't obtain conventional financing with a focus on disadvantaged, highly distressed communities and underserved minority and women-owned businesses. They're 501c3 not-for-profit, certified by the U.S. Department of Treasury as a Community Development Financial Institution, or CDFI. Excelsior Growth Fund is the CDFI affiliate of NYBDC Local Development Corporation, which is one of the premier non-bank SBA lenders in the country. And this fund will be administered out of the Beverly Gray Business Exchange, which is a city-owned center to assist small businesses and MWBEs in the heart of Buffalo's East Side, where these services are really needed the most. ESD will be required to approve the program's loan application, marketing materials, and deal sourcing strategies, as well as due diligence process, loan approval guidelines, underwriting policy and guidelines, portfolio management, and monitoring processes and goals. And the final project, which has been before the directors previously, is a request to approve a $5 million grant from the Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster to be used towards the cost of construction, renovation, planning, design, FF&E for the creation of the National Comedy Center in Jamestown. The National Comedy Center was established in 1996 for the purpose of utilizing a portion of late Lucille Ball's estate to establish the Lucy Desi Museum in a small Jamestown storefront, fulfilling Lucille Ball's wish to establish a public place to celebrate comedy. In the recently approved 2017-2018 budget, the governor announced a $5 million award from the Buffalo Billion Phase 2 Investment Development Plan to be used towards the funding of the National Comedy Center. Construction is underway on the $25 million project, which is on schedule to be completed in June of 2018. The Comedy Center was designated as a priority project by the Western New York REDC over the last 3 CFA funding cycles and received funding in each of those rounds. When the project is completed, it's expected that the Comedy Center will attract over 120,000 visitors mostly from outside of Chautauqua County, and generate $23 million in local tourism revenues. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mike on these? Yep, Derek.
So this is a quick question on the Excelsior Growth Fund Capital. What would you anticipate the average or the typical size of a loan would be under this program?
So, well, the maximum loan is $100,000. They'll grant issue loans from $10,000 to $100,000. With the maximum term is 5 years, and amortization is typically 5 or 10 years.
Other questions for Mike? Is there a motion to approve these three items? Second, Joyce, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, thank you, Mike. Next up, we have Megan Taylor in the Mid-Hudson. Megan?
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Commissioner Zemsky. I am presenting today a $1 million EDF grant from 2014 for Active Media Services, Inc.'s corporate headquarters retention project in the hamlet of Pearl River in Rockland County. Active Media Services invested just under $11.3 million to renovate its current 124,000 square foot corporate headquarters at Blue Hill Plaza, retaining 318 jobs after considering a relocation to New Jersey. This project will enable Active Media to extend their current lease in Pearl River through 2029 and remain in New York State. Active Media Services, founded in 1984, operates as a corporate trade company. The company serves customers in North America, Latin America, Europe, and the Asia Pacific. They have operations in 14 countries, including the U.S., and Active Media offers media solutions in the areas of television, radio, online, video, digital, social, retail marketing solutions, and travel and hospitality solutions. In addition, they also provide freight and logistics services as well. The corporate headquarter renovations were completed in the beginning of this month, and it completed in April of 2016, and the 318 jobs continue to be retained. In addition, 30 jobs have also been created, bringing Active Media Services employment count to a total of 348 people. This project very closely aligns with the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council's work strategy, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Megan on this item?
I can't help but notice now that most of these grants are not producing jobs. Many of them are here to retain employers, which is what I threaten to leave.
Yep, some have. I mean, most of our projects do. There are some that sometimes we're just trying to hold on to and respond to a competitive situation. That's true.
Which is to some extent disappointing. But I also noticed the bottom that the current employment level is 348 jobs. But what they're guaranteeing in return for this money is minimum employment of 318.
Right.
Which is obviously less.
Megan, can you speak to the job commitments?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what the question was. Can you just repeat it one more time, and I'd be happy to answer it.
The question relates to job commitments, that they're not, can you talk about creating versus retention of jobs in this project?
Right. So this project originally came to ESD back in 2014, and they were a very significant flight risk. They were highly considering New Jersey as an additional option. So the $1 million grant, as I had stated before, is tied to the retention of their current employment at that time, which was 318 jobs, as well as the investment of just shy of $11.3 million. Which they have met the goals of, and then, as I had stated before, they did in fact create 30 additional jobs at the facility in Rockland County, but that is not necessarily a stipulation of this $1 million grant.
So basically, the agreement was made at the time to maintain their employment. They've grown their employment by 10% since, and they've met their investment commitment.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the answer. Other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, thanks, Megan.
No problem.
Joe Roman from the Southern Tier Regional Office, Anchor Glass. Joe?
Yes, thank you. The directors are requested to approve a URI grant for a total of $2.5 million to Anchor Glass Container for a portion of the cost of facility upgrades and machine and equipment for its bottle manufacturing plant located in Elmira. This plant has been here under different names for over 100 years. Used to be Thatcher Glass. In 1983, it became Anchor. The facility upgrades will consist of demolishing and re-bricking existing furnace walls. These furnaces, they put out millions of bottles. These furnaces are huge furnaces, stories high, so they're very, very large. They also upgrade their forming machines and also replace and modernize some of their inspection equipment. This project will maintain their competitive edge and keep the plant modern within the Anchor Glass plants that are nationwide out of the 9 other plants. The job retention for this project is $299. It's going to create 8 new jobs. Total project investment is $19.4 million. The project is also consistent with the Southern Tier Office's regional plan, the URI plan, to increase global competitiveness in the region by strengthening our manufacturing sectors. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Joe on the Anchor Glass project?
2.6 million containers a day.
It's amazing what they put out, yes.
Holy cow, out of less than 300 workers. That's really impressive. Wow. Move.
Moved. Okay. Is there thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kelly Baccarizzo will present Market New York. Kelly?
Yes, good morning to the board. Market New York has 3 working capital projects that we're requesting your approval on today. The first project is a Round 6 project that was awarded $300,000 to the LGBT network located in Long Island, in the Long Island region. Together with the City of Long Island, this organization will plan, promote, and host Pride on the Beach, a 3-day destination pride celebration that leverages Long Island's beaches as a natural asset to stimulate out-of-state tourism. The second project is also a working capital project awarded in Round 6 of the CFAs in the amount of $300,000 to the Wild Center located in the North Country region. This organization will develop and implement a multimedia marketing campaign specifically targeted to millennials to inspire this target audience to visit this tourism attraction and the North Country region overall. The final project that we are requesting your approval on today is a Round 5 project awarded $291,500 to the Workforce Investment Board of Herkimer, Madison, and Oneida Counties Incorporated, located in the Mohawk Valley region. This organization will develop and implement a multimedia marketing plan to promote the trails, historic attractions, events, and tourism services along the cycling trails of the Erie Canal Trailway, with a goal to increase visitation to these tourism attractions and the overall region. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kelly on the Market New York program items?
I'm the tough guy today.
All right, take it away. No problem. Cecil.
Here we are giving $300,000 to a couple of not-for-profits to, one to advertise, the other one to have a party on the beach. What do we get out of this? What does the state of New York get out of this? Do we ever get a report as to whether or not we in fact attracted people from outside of Long Island to this party?
These are our, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are, we do these every month, right? Different tourism, promotional partners.
I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, do we get a report? Do we have a sense of whether or not it was an intelligent
Right.
investment?
You know, I'd have to go back to, I don't know if you have an answer to that, Kelly?
Yes, actually, every program through Market New York has to submit metrics or measurements because the tourism industry, we don't necessarily measure on jobs created, but we have them measure in, so it'll depend for each project, but for, marketing projects, they may measure anything from, hits to their website, if it was a website, development project, to increases of numbers to their tourism attraction. We do have reports that individually summarize the success of the project and how we can measure increased visitation, hopefully to the overall region and to the specific destination itself. And in regards to the Pride on the Beach, the governor actually announced in 2016 an additional $2 million for special events in New York State. So it's not necessarily a party on the beach as it is attracting visitors to the beach for event series in order to increase visitation to the region. So that's what this is, one of these special events that is highlighted this year for this round.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, Joyce.
I have a further question which is related. So when we look at something like the party on the beach,
You shouldn't call it that.
yeah, okay, the beach, the Long Island Beach project. Do we measure, is this been done before? This has been done before, I take it. Is this an annual event or a periodically recurring event?
To my knowledge, it's a new event in the region.
Okay, so we can't measure it against past attendance. But will you be looking at where it's drawing visitors from? Is there some way of knowing that? How many are local? How many are from the Long Island, New York City region, as opposed to tourists from other places outside the state?
We don't dictate what the grantee measures upon. We do provide them with the measurement report that we hope that they would, look into where they're coming from. But in general, we do usually see these types of projects measuring where their visitation is coming from and how many visitors they attract. We do ask them in our, in their contracts to be aware that they will have to measure their program success so that we are able to report these the success in the use of the state funds.
Yeah, it might be useful, just generally, and I don't want to pick on the Pride on the Beach event, that we get some sort of 5-minute report on the value and effectiveness of our marketing, our tourism marketing. It's just a broader question.
Sure.
Because these things come to us regularly, and I really don't know how to react.
Right. Yeah, no, we can do that. I mean, Rich has, Newman has, kind of updated the board from time to time, just more broadly on our many tourism initiatives. This is one of really many that we do, I mean, everything from, there's so many special events, be it in the Finger Lakes or in the Adirondacks or in the Catskills or in Western New York or, all of our I Love New York. I mean, there are so many different dimensions to marketing tourism in the state. This is just one of many, but yeah, we can do that.
It's just that as a member of the board, continually approving these things, I want to have a sense
Right.
that there is some value that
Yeah.
we're getting out of this.
I mean, what we could do is also go through sort of some of the review and the criteria. Before it gets to the board, it's gone through probably a pretty extensive screening before it ever makes it into sort of I'm guessing we have more applications than we're able to fund. So.
I feel better if we
Yep.
had some sense of it.
I would also say, though, that broadly, in terms of marketing, we have identified and, statistical analyses about niche marketing efforts, and these are all consistent with that. Now, we would get the results from each one, but broadly, we know that niche marketing is an effective way to increase tourism. We know that, and so that's why we do this type of thing. Each one will stand on its own, but broadly, that's something we do know and we have statistics.
You mean the methodology?
The methodology
That's
about
being employed in this
targeted-
particular location?
Maybe not necessarily in this particular location, but the history events, the LGBT targeted events. It's an effort that has demonstrated success in terms of niche tourism marketing.
Other questions or comments on the items you have, Joyce?
Yeah, but for particular, When we get generic information, it's very difficult to tell from generic information how successful or what a particular event attracted. And I think it might be helpful to get follow-up reports on the, not necessarily verbal, I think, because there are too many of them perhaps, even a written report.
So if I could just comment on that, you're approving these before they actually have started, so we don't have that information at this time. These are working capital, so they're reimbursed quarterly as opposed to the capital projects that you may be used to. They need that, since they're mostly smaller organizations and almost a very good percentage of them non-for-profits, and that's how the working capital process is processed currently at ESD. These are being approved before they're even starting, so we don't have that information until they've completed their project.
Right, so what I'm asking is that there be some kind of follow-up after the project is completed, so that at least we have an idea of how they performed, so that when something similar comes to us in the future, we have a better idea of how to judge it, what to look for.
Okay.
And obviously, once the money has been approved, we're not going to take it back.
Right.
But, and we understand that the project hasn't taken place yet, but it's the follow-up, I think, that would be valuable.
Yep. Okay, we'll work on that. It's any type of promotion, whether it's TV advertising or it's very hard to specify the number of jobs attached to it or something very specific. A lot of times it's awareness, it's promotion, it's, it's difficult to, pinpoint sort of some of the.
Right, well, yeah, and depending on the type of project it is. But for something like this, which is an event which has an attendance.
Right, sure.
That we can at least get the metrics on the attendance.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Kelly on this?
Move. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Christopher Ortiz is here to present 3 contract amendment items related to new New York broadband. Christopher?
Thank you. The Broadband Program Office is seeking the Director's authorization to amend the contracts of Tilson Technology Management, CostQuest Associates, and Michael Baker Engineering, consultants to our office, to resolve final costs associated with the new New York broadband program's now concluded second funding round, Phase 2, and to re-engage these 3 vendors for the program's Phase 3, which, as mentioned, was recently launched. The 3 vendors support the Broadband Office's review of grant applications to the program's funding rounds to ensure that each application meets the eligibility requirements set forth in our grant guidelines. Tilson and its subcontractors perform technical and engineering analyses of the broadband networks. Michael Baker and CostQuest respectively perform geospatial and cost modeling financial analyses of the proposed projects. Tilson also supports the ranking of the projects pursuant to the reverse auction methodology that the President mentioned earlier. The proposed amendments would add amounts not to exceed $700,000 to ESD's contract with Tilson, $560,000 to the contract with CostQuest, and $129,000 to the contract with Michael Baker. These 3 firms were originally selected pursuant to competitive request for proposals governed by ESD's procurement guidelines. They were subsequently re-engaged on a single source basis, CostQuest and Tilson, with the prior approval of this board of directors. Because Michael Baker's contract was less than $250,000, their contract is being brought to the board for the first time today. It's important to note that these amendments reflect amounts coming from a greater than anticipated number of grant applications in the program's second funding round, so resolving those final costs. They include a 10% contingency for each vendor And the proposed amendments would also extend the time frame of all three contracts to February 1st, 2018. The funding source for these three amendments would be 2017-18 funding for the New York broadband program. We've obtained contract reporter exemptions for each of the three amendments and believe that based on the vendor's exemplary performance in phases 1 and 2 of the broadband program, that they represent the best overall value for ESD. I've provided descriptions of the three contract amendments to the board. Please let me know if you would like me to describe any of the materials in greater detail, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from directors on this? Okay.
So wide, terrific.
All right. Any comments from the public?
I guess that's a second.
That's a second. Rob, Cesar, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Chris. Ed Mazinski will now present the April non-discretionary projects consent calendar, and I'll also mention that Chris Shefflin from our Western New York office is on the line to provide any additional background on the Athenix capital item. Ed?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Non-discretionary projects refer to those listed in the New York State budget that enhance the state's communities through cultural, educational, research and development, and civic organizations. These projects originate from the governor, assembly, or senate, and ESD is named to administer the funding. ESD does not select the recipients of funding. This month, there are 3 executive-sponsored and 2 Senate-sponsored projects. The first 2 in the executive category are actually modifications that involve no new assistance. The first is a modification to the General Donovan State Office Building Capital Project, a grant that was approved in 2008 of $1,813,000 to the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, an ESD subsidiary. The modification consists of reallocating funds from demolition, since the building was not demolished and now includes a Marriott, among other uses, to fund site infrastructure work on the adjacent parcel to ready that parcel for development. So the money that was not spent on demolition will clean up electrical utilities on the so-called southern parcel, and then it can be conveyed to the developer for additional construction. The second project is also a modification of a $5 million working capital grant to the Lake Placid Regional Winter Sports Committee. The grant was originally approved in 2006 and modified in 2012 to reallocate some of the grant to an affiliate organization, the Olympic Regional Development Corporation, or ORDA, for its operations. This new modification request is to increase the amount allocated to ORDA from $1.7 million already expended to $4.75 million for its ongoing operations. The project is expected to be completed in April of 2018. The next project is a $200 million grant from a special appropriation for design and construction costs of a new pharmaceutical production plant in Dunkirk, Chautauqua County. The grantee is Athenix, a biotech company which specializes in anti-cancer drugs. This company started in Buffalo in 2002. It recently declined an offer from a private equity firm to move to Boston in exchange for financing. Governor Cuomo in 2016 announced this $200 million grant for a new production facility to be located in Dunkirk. The company will expend over $1.5 billion over 10 years and create 450 new jobs at this location. and construction is expected to be completed in mid-2019. I will continue with, would you like to switch to Chris Choplin now for anything, or would you like me to continue, Howard?
Why don't you finish up, Ed, and then we're keeping track of the projects, and we've got them listed
Okay.
in front of us.
Good enough. I will now turn to the Senate-sponsored projects, and this next one is an $835,000 grant to Long Life Dairy in Onondaga County for electrical infrastructure. The company is an affiliate of Burn Dairy, a company that has been around for 83 years. Long Life Dairy will contract with the local utility, New York State Electric and Gas, for construction of a needed electrical substation. The project will allow the company to expand, adding 10 jobs. The substation is expected to be completed in May 2017. The final project is a $300,000 grant to the Adirondack Museum in Blue Mountain Lake, Hamilton County. Funds will be used for construction of a new visitor entrance and redesign of landscaping. Completion is expected in December 2017. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ed. So we have 5 projects from the non-discretionary calendar, 3 executive items, 2 Senate items. Chris, do you want to add anything? The biggest one, obviously, is the SUNY Poly project, Athenex. This is a big deal, so to speak, for particularly for Dunkirk. Chris has done a great job moving this off of what I would describe as dead center for quite some time, as so many of these projects were, to the point where they're very actively engaged in planning and looking forward to move it to production. So, Chris, do you want to talk about the project at all, or just take any questions?
I can just speak to 3 quick things, Howard, if that's okay.
Sure.
The structure here, as proposed, is different, whereby the company will develop and build the Dunkirk facility. That differs, of course, from other SUNY Poly approaches, but it's more aligned with our traditional model at ESD. And given the complexity of building an FDA-approved manufacturing facility, and given that the company has management and scientists and technical staff with really deep experience in the biopharma industry and the needs that go with that, we believe this is a more effective, nimble, and appropriate approach. Just to update you and the directors of where the project status is, we're working with the company on an open and competitive process to select a design and engineering firm. Phoenix hopes to have that firm engaged by June 1st. We also work with the company's outside consultant to finalize SECRA work, which resulted in the negative declaration on a Type 1 action, which is before you and outlined in your materials this morning. And finally, the reason we're bringing the item today is that after director's approval, hopefully, we have about 2 months of work to do to account for the time it takes to do a public hearing, PACB agenda, and approval and executing a grant disbursement agreement, which brings us into June, and the company hopes to begin work in the middle of summer. So we want to be prepared for that, as it's obviously a very large transaction anywhere in the state, and especially for Dunkirk. So with that, I'll take questions.
Great.
Thanks.
Any questions for Chris? Yep, Derek.
Yeah, are they currently manufacturing these drugs at a different location? Or is this the first time they're gonna actually go into manufacturing?
They're manufacturing more contracted drugs right now in a Western New York facility in Clarence. They are not manufacturing at scale the oral chemotherapy drugs that they will be doing in the Dunkirk facility.
But they do manufacture pharmaceuticals in other parts of the world. You know, currently they have manufacturing facilities in other parts of the world. So they do know how to.
They know how to manufacture drugs.
They know how to manufacture drugs, and they know how to really spec and construct facilities, which we, are trying to keep ourselves out of businesses that we're not particularly experienced in, which is, I think to Chris's point, a much better way for us to get these projects completed without bogging down the project or the agency. Any other questions or comments for Ed or Chris on any of these 5 items? Any comment from the public on any of these 5 items? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Second, Rob. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, folks. Thanks for participating. Sharon has an
Thank you.
item. Sharon Rudder is with us. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Regarding an item, the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund. Sharon?
Thank you, Commissioner Zemsky. The directors are requested to approve $2,414,821 from the Innovate New York Fund to be awarded to 4 previously approved investment entities to receive existing funding or to invest in existing portfolio companies. The Innovate New York Fund is a $45.9 million investment fund designed to support innovation, job creation, and high-growth entrepreneurship through the state, and is one of the 3 programs funded through the grant from U.S. Treasury's State Small Business Credit Initiative in 2012. The fund invests in seed stage and startup businesses through regional and/or industry-focused investment entities that were competitively selected by and contracted with the corporation. Since its launch in 2012, in late 2012, the Innovate New York Fund has provided over $35 million in investment capital, along with over $220 million in private investment matching capital to 81 New York State startup and seed stage companies, 15 of which these are minority and or women-owned businesses. This investment helped to retain 662 jobs and create an additional 1,173 jobs for a total of 1,835 jobs. Although follow-on investment funding was part of the original design of the Innovate New York Fund, most of the Innovate New York Fund managers have invested their capital. Due to the need for additional capital, we would like to transfer $2,414,821 of unallocated program funds to these investment entities for additional investing in their strongest portfolio companies over the next 12 months. These unallocated funds came from U.S. Treasury, who moved funds between New York's State Small Business Credit Initiative programs and provided New York State with an small additional award. We are requesting the funds to be awarded, which are Golden Seeds Innovate New York Fund has invested $4.5 million, along with $18 million of private matching in 8 New York State companies statewide. SCP Buffalo Innovate Incubator was successfully invested $4.1 million, along with $13 million of private investment capital in 16 companies located in the Buffalo and Western New York region. Stonehenge Growth Equity Innovate New York Fund has invested over $5.6 million, with over $17.5 of private capital, 7 companies statewide. I'm requesting the directors approve $673,706 to be awarded to each of these venture funds to invest in follow-on investment capital in their existing Innovate New York portfolio companies. Excel Partners has invested $4.5 million, along with $21 million in 18 companies statewide. We're requesting the directors approve an additional $393,704 for Excel Partners to invest follow-on capital in its Innovate portfolio companies. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Sharon on this item? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Thank you. Second, third, all in favor?
Aye.
And I'm recusing myself from this item. Thank you. Rachel will present a contract amendment for environmental consulting services in connection with the Atlantic Yards project. Rachel?
Thank you. Good morning. This is a request for a contract term extension for owner's representative services for mitigation monitoring in connection with the Atlantic Yards Land Use Improvement and Civic Project in Brooklyn. The consultant, HDR, was originally retained in June 2007 to perform the role of ESD's mitigation monitor for a contract term of 10 years, which is what was anticipated at the time for project completion. The project consists of the 18,000-seat Barclays Arena, the development of a reconfigured and improved Long Island Railroad rail yard, a new subway entrance, the development of 16 buildings for residential, office, and retail uses, including up to 6,430 units of housing, which will include 4,500 rental units, of which 50%, or 2,250 units, will be affordable to low, moderate, and middle-income households, and the creation of 8 acres of publicly accessible open space. As a result of the environmental review that ESD as lead agency conducted for the project, the developer was required to commit to the numerous mitigation measures that had been identified in the environmental impact statement. A Memorandum of Environmental Commitments, or MEC, was created to clarify and memorialize these commitments, which are enforceable through the contract documents entered into between ESD and the developer. The construction activities and related mitigation measures as specified in the MEC that HDR monitors under this contract are summarized in your materials. As I said previously, the contract term was authorized for 10 years by the directors in 2007. While considerable progress has been made on constructing the project, completing the project in 10 years will not be realized. Currently, in addition to the arena and a new subway entrance, 2 residential buildings have been completed and have tenants, and 2 additional residential buildings will be accepting occupants shortly. There are also 2 parcels on which excavation has begun for residential buildings, one containing a school. In addition, construction in the rail yard to support 6 residential buildings is well underway. However, the exact timing and phasing for completing the balance of the project has not yet been provided by the developer. For this reason, ESD staff feels it is prudent to seek authorization for a short-term extension to maintain the monitoring services of HDR until phasing of the remaining project construction can be better defined. ESD staff anticipates that once the project construction schedule information necessary for issuing an adequate competitive solicitation is provided, a new RFP will be issued. Until such time, ESD believes the project is best served by maintaining HDR as the mitigation monitor by extending its current contract for another year so that current site activities can continue to be appropriately monitored without interruption. ESD's experience with HDR throughout the contract has been positive. HDR has extensive experience as both an owner's representative and as environmental consultant for some of the city's most significant initiatives. HDR is currently the mitigation monitor for the Columbia University Manhattanville construction project, the NYU campus expansion project, the Essex Crossing redevelopment project, and the West Village Residences project. The directors are requested to authorize the extension of HDR's contract for 1 year in the amount of $500,000, which is to be reimbursed in its entirety by the developer. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Rachel on this item, HDR monitoring extension for 1 year? We've used them for 10 years, mitigation monitoring on Atlantic Yards. Any questions from the directors or comments? Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any at all? Going once? Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Rachel. Michael Evans, who heads Moynihan Station Development Corporation, presents an important item relating to Moynihan Station. Michael.
Thank you, Howard. Today I am here seeking authorization for the disposition, financing, and redevelopment of the James A. Farley Post Office Building and Annex, including completion of the Daniel Patrick Moynihan Train Hall and authorization to take related actions. As the directors are aware, in September of 2016, a developer-builder team comprised of the related companies Vornado Realty and Skanska USA, dubbed RVS, was designated for the redevelopment of the James A. Farley Building and the completion of the Moynihan Train Hall after a thorough solicitation process administered by ESD and a blue ribbon evaluation committee supported by expert technical committees. At that time, the directors adopted a supplement to the general project plan that described the key project parameters and outlined the general terms and conditions of the deal. In January, the directors affirmed the supplement to the general project plan and also authorized an interim lease and interim development agreement with RVS and a limited budget for early work in the Farley Building to be carried out by Skanska in order to prepare for major construction. During the period since September, the ESD team and its lawyers have been working diligently to negotiate the final transaction documents for the project. Today, I can report that negotiations have progressed to the extent that ESD staff now seeks authorization to execute the major agreements and reach financial close on the commercial transaction so that major construction work can begin on the train hall. The deal is structured so that a joint venture comprised of Related and Vornado will enter into a 99-year lease for the Farley Building and guarantee completion of the train hall by their contractor Skanska for a fixed price of $1.264 billion, excluding certain limited items as detailed in your materials. These exclusions, which include architecture and engineering fees during the construction and the costs for support of railroad forces during construction, along with ESD project management costs and overall project contingencies, are budgeted at $330 million for a total project cost of approximately $1.6 billion. There is a 30% MWBE goal on the fixed price construction contract. Related and Vornado will contribute $230 million towards the completion of the train hall and will also make annual payments in lieu of taxes or pilots for the duration of the 99-year lease. These payments will be used to finance a portion of the train hall construction costs as part of an agreement reached with New York City. Additional funding for the train hall will come from a New York State appropriation to ESD for the project passed in this year's budget, as well as from grants provided by Amtrak, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and the U.S. Department of Transportation. The redeveloped Farley Building and train hall will be governed by a commercial condominium regime. The project is scheduled for substantial completion in late 2020. Today, the directors are asked to authorize ESD to enter into the governing transaction documents, which include the agreement of lease for the Farley Building, the development agreement for the train hall, the pilot agreement, the city project agreement, the condominium declaration and bylaws, the Amtrak development agreement, the MTA force account agreement and project agreement, and the memorandum of understanding with the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, which will provide for the permitting for the project. Summaries of the key terms and conditions for each agreement were in the materials provided in advance, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the directors may have. On this transaction, ESD has been ably advised by real estate counsel from Skadden Arps. Additionally, I want to note that Liz Fine, Richard Dorado, and Laura Rogers from the ESD legal team have been instrumental in shepherding this transaction to this point. It is with great pleasure that I ask the directors to authorize the final commercial agreements that will bring us closer to creating an iconic new civic space on Manhattan's West Side and improving the experience of the over 700,000 daily users of the Penn Station complex. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments from the directors? Maria?
Is the federal funding set in stone, or is it subject to this budget coming up?
We have 3 components of federal funding, 2 grants that have already been awarded, and we are finalizing the grant agreements, but see no issues there. The funds are already sitting in Federal Railroad Administration bank accounts. And the third piece is we are pursuing a TIFIA loan through the federal government as part of the pilot financing. We are in deep in negotiations, and we'll come back to the directors for authorization for that loan agreement in the near term.
Joyce?
Yeah, my understanding is that the TIFIA program may, under the president's proposed budget, be greatly reduced. What happens if funding?
What's Plan B, I think, is the essence of the question.
Yes, well, the pilot agreement will happen at financial close, and so ESD will have the revenue stream and has been working with bond counsel and banks and has a Plan B if necessary. But we do anticipate not having a major issue with the TIFIA. We are well along in the process and have had nothing but positive indications, not just from the staff, but including from the new administration.
Great. Other questions or comments from directors? Any comments from the public on this project? Do we have some people speaking from the public? 2 minutes for individuals, up to 4 minutes if you're representing a group. Is someone going to call on these different folks?
Yeah, we have several speakers.
Yeah, can you just stand up? We'll hear you.
Sure.
Thank you.
We have several speakers. The first one is Thomas Gisaldi from Teamsters Joint Council 16.
Okay, Thomas.
Good morning. I represent Joint Council 16, Teamsters, which represents over 100,000 members in the New York metropolitan area. We are in strong support of the Monahan project. This will be a 21st century gateway to New York City, connecting Hudson Yards and the Far West Side for the first time. As we all know, the existing Penn Station has been an eyesore for commuters and visitors for decades. This project is estimated to bring $4.5 billion of economic growth to New York City, will employ over 12,000 union construction jobs for the project to be built, and on completion, 2,500 permanent jobs. This is a win on many fronts for commuters that take the Long Island Railroad and Amtrak, and visitors that come into New York City to connect to the West Side. So expand our city on the West Side for the first time in a long time, and the Teamsters strongly support this project. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Felice Barbara of GCA.
Good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I'm Felice Farber of the General Contractors Association of New York. The GCA has been an outspoken and consistent supporter of the redevelopment of the James A. Farley Post Office since U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan first proposed this project in the 1990s. Transforming the Farley Post Office into a mass transit center worthy of New York remains a strategic cornerstone in the redevelopment of the far west side of Manhattan, one that also includes building the much-needed Gateway Tunnel and improving Penn Station. Penn Station is the busiest transit hub in the nation, carrying more than 600,000 passengers daily, yet it was designed for far fewer passengers. Former Vice President Joe Biden described LaGuardia as a third-world airport. The same can be said for Penn Station, a congested, undersized, cluttered maze that does not reflect the grand entranceway that a city like New York deserves. The redevelopment of Farley into the Moynihan Hall will bring light and air to a new transit hub, but more important, will expand concourse capacity, which anyone who has traveled through Penn Station at rush hour can attest to the critical need. And finally, it will restore to the West Side a grand civic space that was torn down in the 1960s, an act that so outraged New Yorkers it gave birth to the landmarks preservation regulations we have in place today. During the course of construction, the project will create thousands of family-sustaining middle-income union construction jobs. The top-notch team selected through a competitive process to build this project is well versed in the challenges of working with Amtrak and working safely in such a dense area. The developer, Vornado Related, has been developing plans for this project for years, and they understand the challenges and complexities. The general contractor, Skanska, successfully completed Phase 1 of the train hall and knows the difficulties of working over and around tracks that comprise the critical transit link on the west side. The developer-builder team is ready to begin work immediately, with substantial completion by December 2020. We are well past the point of debating whether the Moynihan Train Hall is a critical link in the economic development of New York City, in developing the West Side and improving transit mobility in the region. New York has a responsibility to its future by moving this project from concept to concrete. The General Contractors Association of New York strongly supports this project, and we urge the Empire State Development Board to approve the Moynihan Train Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Santos Rodriguez from New York City BCTC.
Good morning, all. My name is Santos Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Community Affairs and Strategic Initiatives for the New York City Building Trades Council of Greater New York. I'm here to testify in support of the redevelopment of the Moynihan Station. The Building and Construction Trades Council is an organization of local building and construction trades unions that are affiliated with 15 international unions in North America building trades. Our local union affiliates represent approximately 100,000 construction workers. The building trades mission is to raise the standard of living for all workers, to advocate for safe working conditions, and to collectively advance the working conditions of all affiliates members and as well as all workers in New York City. The Building and Construction Trades Council has long been a strong proponent of infrastructure projects as a way of sustaining and stimulating economic growth as well as improving quality of life. We applaud the governor's latest plan to update the state transportation facility and fully support the efforts of the redevelopment and revitalize Penn Station. The current Penn Station houses 21 tracks and 7 tunnels, service approximately 700,000 commuters, visitors from via the Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, New York City subway connections. With your approval, the busy transportation hub in the middle of Midtown Manhattan would be transformed into the state-of-the-art facility that New Yorkers deserve. The redevelopment of James A. Farley Building as a new Moynihan Train Hall will protect the historic features of the Farley Building, expanding concourse capacity, add a skylit train hall, and include retail and commercial space. Importantly, the project estimates to generate an aggregate economic impact of over $4.5 billion through the creation of approximately 12,500 construction jobs that will provide workers with family-sustaining wages and benefits. Additionally, 2,500 permanent jobs will be created through this project, which is expected to be substantially completed by December 2020. Projects such as this that upgrade a modernized existing facility, stimulates growth, create jobs, improve transportation, and provide more pleasant experience for commuters and citizens are the types of win-win projects that are smart investment by the state of New York. I thank the board for the opportunity to testify in support of this exciting project that will continue to advance Governor Cuomo's efforts to rebuild this state's infrastructure and revitalize its vital transportation hub. We ask that you approve this important redevelopment project. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Peg Green of New York Landmarks Conservancy.
Good morning. I'm Peg Breen. I'm president of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. We're a private nonprofit architectural organization, and Senator Moynihan was a longtime member of our advisory board. So no surprise, we've been supporting a train hall in the Farley Post Office since he first proposed it a mere, 25, 26 years ago? We could have and should have been taking trains out of there a long time ago. But here we are. And the need for what is now the Moynihan Train Hall has only increased. This was never about nostalgia. It was a recognition, as the senator put it, that a great city demands great public facilities. It's also a wonderful example of how historic landmark buildings can be adapted to serve modern needs. And yes, it's about jobs, economic development, and freeing up space in Penn Station for needed improvements there. We're grateful that this is now a priority of the governor's. The public has been waiting long enough. So please, vote yes, and let's get building. Thank you.
The next speaker is Dan Biederman, president of the 34th Street Partnership.
Thanks very much. 34th Street Partnership covers 32 million square feet in the area around the station. It's been a long haul. We're grateful that the state separated the Postal Service from everyday management. It was a challenge to get that agency to view this the same way you have. So we're thrilled about that. We know how complicated this is. I'm explaining to my board why things take a long time. I've said there are very few projects that involve 6 or 7 governments and quasi-government agencies. That's very difficult. 2 would be almost too many. You guys are fighting a more difficult war. We think the plans are terrific. They've been reviewed by staff and some of the board members. Sensible pedestrian paths have been laid out. So we praise those. And not to embarrass him, but Michael Evans has been incredibly responsive, representing you with us, always returning phone calls, in touch with us all the time, even on minor matters like the light bulbs that light the 33rd Street facade, which is a long-time complaint of my members. Michael has been helpful and reachable. We have a slight concern that the back of the station be moved along as quickly as possible, because you've got an awkward situation where you've got Vornado 7th to 8th and their partner, and we love them both, but They represent different parts of the district, 7th to 8th versus 10th to 12th, where Related is doing its project. And in between is Brookfield, and they look at the back of your station. And they're doing beautiful job leasing. They're one of our members, and we want to make sure that the back is as beautiful as it can be and moves along as quickly as possible. So that's the 9th Avenue facade from 31st to 33rd. Brookfield, I guess, was a contender, lost out, and they're doing a building that'll have very nice public spaces. So it's very important that the back integrate with that in some way, even though the three are to some extent competitors. But other than that concern, we're delighted with these plans moving forward finally, and grateful for your staff's efforts to work with us. Thanks very much.
Great.
The final speaker is Andrew Holloway of New York Building Congress.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Hallweck, Senior Vice President at the New York Building Congress. My comments are going to largely reinforce what you've already heard today. Just want to comment, Michael took my boss and I around the future Moynihan Train Hall, I believe on Friday, and we really got the full 360-degree tour, and it is potentially just a magnificent space with, I mean, hallways upon space that really could be transformative, not just for the immediate area, but for the entire city as really a new gateway to New York City. It is worth noting that this deal does bring together an astonishing number of public and private entities, each with their own complicated interests that had to be aligned. So the execution of this contract, I think, is, I don't call it a work of art, but it certainly is a work of some manner. So we should really, this contract should be ratified as quickly as possible before it's too late. And I'll just close. The end product will be worth the years of discussion. A train terminal worthy of New York City, and a new home for Amtrak and its customers, who for decades have been shoehorned into a low-ceiling mezzanine in Penn Station. Long Island Railroad passengers will also be able to board and unload here using the new exits created in Phase 1, particularly those headed to Manhattan West, Hudson Yards, and the ever-expanding brand-new neighborhood in the far west side. So I'll close. The Moynihan Train Hall will be the axis around which all of this growth and exciting new transformation for our city revolves. That this project is so close to happening as a turning point for our city. We urge you to approve this deal so that this work may quickly proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there's no more public comment, right, on this project? Okay, thank you. So let me just say a couple things. A few things were identified in the comments. One person said 25 years. This has been an active project. I don't know if that's the exact number, but I think the point is well made. It's been kicking around for a long time. And I want to recognize, well, of course, there's a ton of people to thank, but I want to say that among the ESD team, I suspect Rich Gerano has maybe put in more years than anybody on this project, over 10. Rich, why don't you stand up and take a bow for great work. And Liz, thank you to you and the legal team have done such a great job. And I know there are always so many people involved at ESD in these types of projects. If I start mentioning people, I'll slight folks, but certainly legal team has done a fabulous job. Michael, it's been referenced that there are 6 or 7 agencies or entities coordinating it. You've done a fabulous job quarterbacking this project. You should be extremely proud, and we're proud of the work that you've done. So we want to thank you and give you a hand for a great job.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, directors.
And it was also mentioned that the Penn Station was, I'll make sure I get this right, congested, underground, cluttered maze. So I think the governor has used similarly vivid language to describe Penn Station, and obviously his extraordinary commitment to improving the infrastructure of this great state. As this is $1.25 billion of a $100 billion ambitious infrastructure effort. The Empire State has regained its gumption and its vision around infrastructure that it had for so many years and that it lost for some period of time. So this is a signature part of a broader infrastructure investment plan that the governor has rolled out, and we're extremely proud to be associated with it here at ESD. With that, I don't have really any other comment. I don't know if, since it's been so long. Okay, Cesar moved it.
I'm ready to second it.
All right, second it. Any other public comment? Any other questions, Liz?
I just want to acknowledge our outside counsel, Rock, who's here, who with
Yep.
his colleagues at Skadden Arps has been beyond
Yep.
instrumental in getting us to where we are today.
Way to go, Neil. Thank you for that. Way to go. Anyone, any other comment? For the record? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good job, Michael. Kevin Hansen, Kevin, that's a tough act to follow right there, $1.25 billion. But you have some administrative actions, pre-qualified owners rep list. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Howard. I had the same thought. This board item is to establish a list of pre-qualified owners representatives that ESD can call on from time to time to supervise and monitor other construction projects. So among its many functions, ESD and its subsidiaries lead or support a significant number of real estate development projects across the state, many of which have substantial construction activities. These construction projects can vary significantly in terms of their size, geographic location, phasing, and development program. So everything from public spaces and children's museums in Buffalo to office space and high-tech clean rooms in Albany to train halls and convention centers in New York City. Due to the diversity of these projects, the temporary nature of the work, and their geographic dispersion, ESD sometimes requires the assistance of outside firms in order to supervise construction activities and otherwise ensure that contractors or recipients of ESD economic assistance comply with applicable construction requirements and industry standards. As a result of this need, in order to facilitate the timely and efficient procurement of such firms in the future, ESD is seeking to establish a list of pre-qualified construction management firms that ESD can call upon anywhere in the state whenever they are needed. Accordingly, on December 20th, 2016, ESD placed an advertisement in the New York State Contract Reporter, which requested proposals from construction management firms to provide construction review and monitoring services. In order to be pre-qualified to provide such services to ESD, respondents were required to demonstrate proficiency and understanding in all areas of construction project administration and management. In total, 37 respondents to this solicitation demonstrated their being qualified to provide such services to ESD. Their names are listed in Attachment A to this board item. Nearly 1/3 of these firms are identified as a minority-owned business enterprise, a women-owned business enterprise, or both. And in addition, respondents were surveyed as to the regions of the state in which they expected to respond to solicitations. And based on this survey, we have identified a minimum of 10 firms that will be interested in responding to solicitations for each region, according to the list. And just once again, by establishing such a list now, in the future, we'll have the option to carry out other construction monitor solicitations much more quickly by soliciting quotes from these pre-qualified firms based on pre-established rates and services. The Women's Building project on today's agenda is one example of the type of project that will benefit from such a list by resulting in faster procurements in the future. Lastly, just a reminder that today's action doesn't commit the corporation to any expenditure of funds. It simply completes a pre-qualification process that will allow ESD, where it chooses, to procure such services with greater agility in the future.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or comments from the directors on this item from Kevin?
I think it's a totally rational and intelligent way to handle it. We've got so many balls in the air. I don't think we want to hire the staff full-time to be able to handle this. These places make up 5 or 6 more floors in the building. So. Owners reps are being used even on small projects now because they represent the people that are funding the plan. So I think it's a great idea.
How do you feel about being associated with something rational and intelligent?
I think it perfectly comports with the rest of the way we run the agency.
Good job. Any other comments from the directors? Any comments or questions? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Rob. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Kevin. Juilliard Lynn will now present an item related to the Women's Building Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. Juilliard.
Morning. The directors are being requested today to authorize ESD to enter into a contract for construction advisory services related to the redevelopment of the Bayview Correctional Facility in Chelsea. In the coming weeks, ESD expects to finalize the lease with the developer, who will be responsible for all demolition, renovation, and construction at the project site. When complete, the women's building will include collaborative working spaces for nonprofit and community organizations and support art, wellness, and other programs. Off of Kevin's note, in order to oversee the developer's construction activities on behalf of ESD and protect ESD's interests, we anticipate entering into a contract with Gilbane Building Company. Gilbane will provide construction advisory services, including coordinating with the construction managers, reviewing the project budget and timelines, and monitoring the developer's compliance with its construction obligations. Gilbane went through the full competitive selection process. The contract value is expected to be approximately $1.4 million, and that's inclusive of a 12% contingency over the duration of the developer's work. The source of funding will be an impressed account held by ESD and fully funded by the developer. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Juilliard on this or comments from directors? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve? Seconded, Cesar. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. Samantha Edoff will now present the last item on today's agenda, which relates to a contract amendment with the University of Buffalo's Regional Institute. Samantha.
Hello. The directors are requested to approve and amend the existing contract for a no-cost one-year term extension for the contract with the University of Buffalo Regional Institute, extending the contract to March 22nd, 2018. ESD would like to continue working in concert with UBRI to further evangelize the various economic development initiatives throughout the state, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments? This isn't an additional funding commitment, is it?
No.
Okay. Any other, it's just an extension. So any other questions or comments from directors? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second, Cesar, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Thank you all for your participation. Fabulous. 2 hours, we did it.